Really, La Maliosa was about producing healthy products in a pollution-free environment and spreading the word. That was what La Maliosa was about. So I am in southern Tuscany, and southern Tuscany, for anybody that hasn't been there, is a very unspoiled, preserved part of Italy. This is not very common in Italy. Italy is a very overcrowded country because we are 60 million, all squashed into very narrow plains. So it's very unusual to have an area that is so big and not very populated. Maremma has the population density of Siberia. So this gives you an idea. Okay, very few anthropic pressure on the environment. A lot of animals. That's my biggest issue, actually. Of any kind you can imagine, except lions and tigers. So I had this idea to start an agricultural project in around 2005 when I had a sabbatical year and I was pregnant with my second child. So I decided to kind of get the change in my life and start this project. I didn't know anything about agriculture, nothing. I just knew what I wanted to do. So I bought the land from scratch. It's a project that is not inherited in any way from anybody. So I bought the land and planted what's there. So basically I planted all the vineyards, a lot of olive groves. There's a lot of wild areas in the farm. There's about 40 hectares of forests. And it's an amazing, beautiful place, really. I mean, if you have a chance to come and visit, you're all invited. And the thing about La Maliosa is I met this researcher right when I was starting. His name was Lorenzo Corino. He was a pioneer in sustainable viticulture, and we were able to apply and experiment a lot, apply this knowledge and experiment a lot within La Maliosa, since we had this opportunity to plant vineyards from scratch, which is also a very rare opportunity. Okay, and so we prepared. Well, maybe we're going to go. I stop now because I know maybe I'm speaking too much. But we worked a lot on soil, organic substance in the soil before planting. So we did a few things to prepare the land, and then we planted in a very particular way so that we could conserve and increase of organic substance. We work on the ecosystems around the vineyard, inside the vineyard. We work on biodiversity around and inside, and that's it. I mean, it's all for now. Thank you. We made a lot of mistakes, and the result of that was our method, because we could identify the best practices. So I'm going to mention a few things to you that maybe don't mean a lot, but just to make some examples. Okay. So we are only working with historical varieties. I'm not using the word autochthonous varieties because, in Italy, an autochthonous variety is defined by something that has been in a territory for 50 years. So in the last 50 years, you can pick any place in Italy, any kind of variety was there. So everything in the world can become an autochthonous Italian variety. So we only work with historical, so that's varieties that have been in the Maremma for more than 100 years. That's very important, not only because we are giving you, a witness of the history of the place, which is very important to us. Italy is a very old country. But also they are very adapted. So there are varieties that are very adapted to climate and soil conditions. And this allows us to do less in the vineyard. And these 2 main points. Something else I mentioned earlier was we worked on the organic substance. We do that by producing from our hay. We produce a lot of hay made from mixed grasses that we don't seed. It's just spontaneous grasses. We produce the hay, we put it back in the vineyard. So with this mulch, we have a lot of we get a lot of results results, one of them is that it's gradually absorbed by the soil, and it's producing this little layer of organic substance. That's very important because the soils there, they were farmed since the Etruscan time. So we have soils that had people there farming for more than 3,000 years. I mean, can you imagine that? Okay, how much organic substance is left? Very little. So it's true that in a vineyard you can have very little, you want to stress the vine, but you don't want to kill the vine, right? Still you need something, all right? So you need humidity, so the mulch is also performing the capture of humidity. We live in a very, very dry environment. It rains very little, so once it rains, that drop of rain is gonna stay there where it lands. It's not going anywhere. So we're also limiting erosion. So it's performing a lot of things. So I would say that's a very, very, very important part of the Torino method. Historical varieties, and then the part of the cellar. I think a lot of people can say this. The result of all this that we do in the vineyard, we will produce smaller bunches, thick skin, and so it's a very, very high quality bunch, which allows us to basically do nothing in the cellar.
So, and that was what I was really interested in, was the thickness of the grapes. With that, what did you find works to produce that? Like what farming practices? Is there anything specific that
Well, for sure, not irrigating will allow us to have thicker skin. So a ratio of the pulp to skin that is lower, so we have more skin, since we have the smaller berries, basically. So I think not irrigating is very important part.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see, so.
Another way that works, so I did it in Petite Syrah, which is highly susceptible to rot. And I have some of my Petite Syrahs clone 3, so monstrous clusters with a lot of mastication. Doing the pre-bloom leafing, you would strip both sides, so you would strip all 12 inches around that cluster within the fruiting zone, and all of that removing all of the leaves on both the front and back side for 12 inches. You had a lot of early season exposure and airflow and sun acclimation prior to bloom. So by the time those clusters started to set, you already had reduced size because you overexposed them too early, but you started to have earlier acclimation to the sunlight, so you didn't have sunburn, and the skins got thicker, which increased the anthocyanin and reduced any botrytis. So it ended up eliminating my harvest spray pass of a botryticide, because I didn't want to do an 8th spray pass. Now I can cut off in the middle of June, but when I first started farming the vineyard, we were spraying into September for like a early October pick date for that Petite Syrah. And prior to the pre-bloom, we were doing maybe 8 to 10 tons per acre.